Okay, we're live. Sarah, I'm so excited to be doing this with you.
It is exciting.
We have not done a live together, I think, in like a year or two.
I
Like you
think
and me.
the last few lives I've been doing have been with Melissa, which have been a lot of fun because, as you know, we have, been in the OBM sphere for many, many moons together. I think I actually can't remember if I trained Melissa like 100 years ago or what that was, but
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. Yeah,
the same program, something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was something many, many moons ago. So it was, it's always fun to jam
Yes.
with the team and you. So I'm just really grateful to be in your amazing community because all the OBMs in my program tell me that, they're coming from your program, most of them, and they just rant and rave about how it really got them going in the online space. So that's so important.
Well, I'm super excited to chat with you. So for anyone joining us or coming back and watching the replay, today we're going to talk about online business management because what I have found is that so many people who come into the virtual assistant world and they want to make money as a virtual assistant, the more that they dive in, they find that what they really enjoy once they get in and really start working with clients is that they enjoy doing some of the higher level tasks. They enjoy really the strategy component or the project management component. And so really, if those are some of your natural giftings or something that you enjoy doing, then online business management can be a really great transition, a pivot, a way to up level your VA services. And so for a few years now, we've been promoting Sarah's online business manager courses and her accreditation program because it really gives you the skills and the tools to make that transition well. So we're just going to dive into all things online business management. So, if you're here and you've considered becoming an online business manager, or you're just curious about what that could look like in the future for you, you're definitely in the right place. We're going to just be chatting about all the ins and outs of that. But Sarah, why don't we just start off with this? Why don't you give people a little bit of a background of who you are?
Yeah, absolutely.
Space.
Yes. So I actually started back in the online space in 2009. I think it was just eons ago. The online space was very different. And like most of you here, I was Googling on my computer how to legitimately make money working from home. I knew I wanted to be a mom. I have 3 kids now. I didn't have any kids then. And I was just kind of setting myself up for success in many ways, but freaking out because I literally didn't know how I was going to make this work for myself. So started off as a VA, for about 3 years, I worked straddling my corporate job with being a VA. And I would describe myself as being a yes woman, and not in a good way, because I was just really saying yes to any job that came my way. And for me personally, I was very much ignoring, I think, some of my natural skill set because I really didn't have a way of sort of encompassing everything that I loved doing, which was more so management, just, based on my background and what I like doing. I was coming from an MBA. I had sold a landscaping company when I lived in Canada. So I had some entrepreneurial in me, but I just felt very insecure and I really didn't know what to do with myself. And somewhere along the line, I think in 2011 or 2012, I came across this OBM, online business manager thing. And I was like, immediately I had this feeling of like, I can really position myself to an online business manager and do really well at this. But then I looked at my whole roster of VA clients and I was like, oh my God, none of these people, need or would want me, I think, to manage some of their stuff. So we're definitely going to talk more about that today, what the client looks like. Because I always tell everyone who will listen to me that everybody and their brother needs a VA. Like we have 2 VAs on our team. I always tell clients like a VA is the first person that you need to hire. But then at some point, your business will reach a certain size where you might inquire into hiring an OBM. And that's what we're going to get into today. But when I started to position myself as an OBM, I really started to step into my own. I started landing clients that were more aligned with the services that I wanted to offer. And it snowballed into an agency, which snowballed into OBM School. And, I had met Abbey many years ago. Do you remember in San Diego? I feel like that was like 8 or 9 years ago. Um, I was attending one of Abbey's events, and I feel so grateful to be in, not to be cheesy, but to just be here with you guys today talking about something that has really made truly a humongous difference in my life and the wealth of my family. You know, I used to literally work from my porch. Now I actually have an office with a lock on the door.
It's the dream.
It was my dream, and like I have it now. I'm pinching myself still every day.
So good. Well, I'm excited to chat about this. Definitely, we'll talk about this as far as like finding OBM clients. But
Yeah,
you mentioned Melissa. If you guys don't know, Melissa is like my number two in business. She's changed titles over the years and is now like COO of our company. But she came to me as an OBM, right? And it was just such a pivotal point in business. So we'll talk about like ideal clients, and I can share even where I was at that point. But just for anybody joining from the onset, let's get really specific about what an online business manager even is. I feel like that's a very good first step into
definitely.
knowing if this is right for you. So, what is an OBM?
So that's a great question. So an online business manager is not somebody who manages all the things and only with online businesses. So let's first take away that common misconception that we only work with online businesses. That's not true. An online business manager manages aspects of businesses, whether it be offline or online. And we manage parts of the day to day to free up our clients so that they can focus on the things that really move the needle in their business. And that's really how we impact the bottom line with our clients. Now, one of the other ways I like to describe it is an OBM often fits in between strategy and implementation. So naturally, the client is supposed to come with the strategy, like, what are we doing? What's the vision? What does that look like? And then you have the team that implements and does the doing. And then you have the OBM that sits in between, which is almost like a buffer. And we really help to bring the vision to life. And I find that a lot of the times when I speak with VAs that are wanting to make the transition, I always ask them, I'm like, how do you feel about the big picture of the business? And they always say to me, I feel like I can't do things, I can't get my tasks done unless I know why I'm doing them and what this all means. And I often find that if you are feeling like this is a next step for you, it's usually because you need to know what the big picture is. You want to understand, what's the vision, what are the client's goals, and then you make that happen by instructing the team, carrying out automations. And like I mentioned, it's not just offline or online, it's any small business. So I always like to look at the business size. So maybe 5 or less team members, at least 100,000 in revenue, and the mindset for delegation. So the funny thing about this online space, and if you've been working with clients, you may or may not have encountered this, but a client can totally need an OBM on paper, but if they still think like they are the only ones who can manage the parts and pieces in their business, they're never going to be able to delegate. So we're definitely going to get into like who the client is, where you can find the client. But I just want you to understand this certain vibe of the OBM. It's about taking responsibility and accountability for the things that are happening in the business. And a lot of the times that's why the higher rate comes with that, because you are in lieu of your client. Then your client can step out and they can go to that event because they know the OBM is managing the team, making sure that things are going out properly with their finger on the pulse, aligned with the vision.
Yeah.
Yes.
We talk a lot about like I'm always giving you guys book recommendations, and I think the book that changed everything for me from a client perspective when I was looking to hire an OBM, or when I realized I needed this, was when I read the book Rocket Fuel.
Oh,
um,
wow. With
oh
the
my gosh, it
yeah,
was
that's a good one.
it was such a game changer. So the basic premise of the book is that, most entrepreneurs, or a lot of entrepreneurs, are like just visionaries at heart. They're the big picture people. They kind of see the big thing, and they have like an idea of the strategy, and it's like, I know the destination, like I know where we're going, right? And I know the basic spots of how we're going to get there. And then an integrator usually comes in, and I literally call my integrator the other half of my brain because I feel like I am like a whole person with her there. And it is the like, okay, perfect. That is a great strategy. That's a great vision. Now let's take it and how do we like make it reality, right?
Yes.
And so that could be by, blocking out the strategy into a project management. It could be delegating things to a team member. It could be looking at the business as a whole, putting in like numbers or facts or whatever and saying, like, yes, but maybe it's like giving that other perspective. And as an OBM, you have kind of that ability to have more of the strategy talk. So I think that again, like, who is this good for? In my opinion, and let me know if you agree, like if you already find yourself having some of those bigger picture strategy conversations with your clients and just being like, all right, let me take all of this and put it here, and like let me take the big vision and like bring it to earth. I feel like those people generally are good OBMs. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. And I will even add a piece of that. So first, I just wanted to be specific. Integrator, online business manager, fractional COO, they're all synonyms, right? For like the same role in the business. And the beautiful thing about our online space is it really is evolving, and OBMs are, and just virtual support in general is in such a big demand. But yes, to go back to what you were saying, absolutely. Like, it's about being able to bring the strategy to life and having that big picture feeling in your heart and in your soul. The other things that I often hear from our students is like, when out of all of my friend group, if someone has a problem, they come to me and I step by step put it on a list. Or like I'm the person in my friend group who like organizes, or if someone has a problem, they come to me. So there's usually like this common theme of being organized, being accountable, being able to clearly lay out a plan. Okay, it doesn't need to be perfect, but it's like, you're almost thinking steps for things. That tends to be very helpful. And I think naturally we're just all heart of service people here. So that's also a key piece of this for sure.
For sure. And I do want to mention, I'll throw this out just early on and we could talk about it a little later as well. But if this is something you're interested in just finding out more about, I will say that Sarah does have her OBM School accreditation program opening up, and it is something that you apply for. So applying doesn't cost anything. So if you're even
No, free
interested
to
in
apply. Yeah.
yeah, if you want to just know more about OBM and see if this could be a good fit for you, then I definitely would suggest that you at least apply to the program and see if it is a good fit, right?
Right.
And this is a really great transition. You don't have to be a VA first to go straight into being an OBM by any means. So if you're just naturally more bent toward these managerial or higher level strategy concepts, then definitely you can just go straight into being an OBM. But I have found that a lot of people will start as a VA and then transition. So it's really good for both. And we can talk
Yeah.
more about
Right.
specifics. I just
Yeah.
wanted to mention it
And
here.
I will also add here that when you go to obmschool.com/Abby and you take literally 3 minutes to fill out an application for free, you also have an opportunity to get on a call with me. And I do not pressure anybody. I want people it's a 25-person limit in our program. We want the right people in there, but I'm happy to get on that call with you and offer any sort of support or guidance, because I know also that when fortunately or fortunately, I'm like you guys, and it does take time to make decisions. Okay. So don't feel obligated. Don't feel like you have to do anything at all. It's just about opening. For me, it's a big part of what I do, and a big part of my why is being able to pay this forward to other people because like I told you, I've got my dream office. I've checked the things. I got the house and the office. That was why I set out to do this. I can fly home to Canada when I need to see my family. So for me at this point in my life and in my career, it's really about supporting other and empowering other women, and especially parents, to have that work-life balance.
Yeah,
My
for
God.
sure. And you guys know we actually promote very few people like this. We're pretty protective about who we let into this community. So
I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be the staple OBM for the
I
time.
vouch for Sarah and her program. She's the go-to when people, how about online business? I'm like, Sarah, Zero. Okay, let's keep going. What is the difference between a VA and OBM? We kind of touched on it, but anything that you want to just like point out that maybe we didn't mention before?
I think that, I think there are a lot of differences between OBMs and VAs, specifically with the client, which we did talk about that I want to kind of drill in. Everybody can use a VA. You might find that you have varying different clients from varying different fields and varying different levels of business. When you are an OBM, your client has to have three core things, or you need to see three things in your client. They need to have the recurring revenue. So no startups. This needs to be like an established business that requires a manager, unlike a lot of businesses where VAs can come in. Okay. So that's the first thing, is like there needs to be something to manage. They have to have a vision that you are on board with, because we really partner in a way. I'm not sure how I feel about the word partner, but I feel it's the closest thing to describe it. It is somewhat of a partnership. So if you're like really icked out by what they're doing, it's never going to fly. And then the third important quality that the client needs to have is this mindset for delegation. When you're delegating like the managerial parts on your plate, you have to realize and get to a point in your business where you recognize that the value of your time spent is so much so that it makes sense for you to hire on an OBM at like $65 an hour, because your client knows that they can go and spend an hour. If they bring you on for a 20-hour retainer and they get back 10 hours of their day from your 20-hour retainer, or 10 hours in a month, in those 10 hours, they're going to go and make $600 an hour. That's $60,000, right? No?
Don't ask me. I'm terrible at quick math.
Damn it. This is why we're all, that's another key thing. I think in general is like, we're not great at math. Okay. Busted. So at any rate, you can see that the value of the client's time in relationship to how much they're paying for your retainer. So if your retainer is $2,000 a month and they're going and they're making $6,000 or $60,000, we're not sure, but they're going and they're making
$600 an hour. Let's say
a lot. Even if it's like, they're making a whole hell of a lot of money by you coming in there and taking the reins of accountability and responsibility in their business. And also, I find that a lot of the OBM clients that we work with are they suck at team management. They're not great project managers. They're visionaries. Whereas we are like back end people. Okay, so the first thing is the client. The second really key distinction is how we communicate with our clients. So I'll give you an example. In the VA role, you might say something like, "Hey, dear client, how can I help you? What do you need help with? What can I take off your plate?" So when you're saying that, it's great as a VA. They're like, "I need graphics. I need you to schedule these emails. I need you to do X, Y, and Z." In the OBM role, your language changes. Okay. Suddenly you're not asking what you can help them with. You're proposing things to help them with. So I noticed that our membership site was lagging and we needed more content. So I asked the content manager, I worked it into her current schedule to create that thing. Or I know that we've got launch coming up. So I went ahead and I suggested a few promotions that we can do that, based on the metrics, have really worked for us in the past. So it's like you're really coming in, and instead of putting more on your client's plate by now giving them the responsibility of like, what do you need to do? Now you're actually saying, actually, we're going to take it off your plate. I'm going to suggest what I think needs to happen here. Okay. So we've talked about the clients. We've talked about like the mannerisms in a way, and the services are very different, right? Like, so as a VA, you're coming in, you've got your specialty. Maybe I know I started off in social media as a VA. You might be a graphic designer. Like I feel like VA and OBM are such big industries and encompass so many different things. But you're very like specific in what you do. And that's why you can get in there, you bang out whatever they hired you to do, and either you're on retainer for that same thing or you go on to your next client. As an online business manager, you're really focused more on team management, systems management, operations management, launch management, project management. So it's way more managerial, and you're focused more on like this, and obviously not necessarily all of those in one fell swoop, but you're managing more things in the business. So that's why you're coming on usually on retainer, because you're managing those things for the long haul. That's why they need to be making enough money to support you being in their business for at least 3 to 6 months. That's why I said consistent revenue. So the services are a little bit different. And I think the more important thing, because I feel like that's pretty maybe not, but I feel like it's more self-explanatory. The other big key, the fourth big key thing, is the way that we onboard our clients. So like I mentioned about the VA, like you guys, we know what we want to offer. We're very clear on it. It's clear start, clear end. You have your whole onboarding thing that you've definitely learned in Savvy Systems and all that amazing stuff. As an OBM, it's more of a hot mess, I would say. You're coming in there and you can't, in a 20-minute discovery call, know what that client needs. You feel this sensation of being overwhelmed before you're even working with that client, because you're like, it's like when you start a corporate job or a 9 to 5, like there's like a very long learning curve of like understanding their funnels, who's on their team, what are their goals, what's their vision. Like you have to really have a certain onboarding process with the client. And inside of OBM School, we're very big on dating projects with clients, so that before you commit and go like all in with this client, because look, this was my fifth point, was like, you have a lot less clients than as a VA. You can't work, because for the simple reason that you cannot manage five, like we at any point, we usually recommend to our OBMs that they have like 4 or 5 retainer clients max, because, and you have your own business on top of that. It's a lot of visions to remember. It's a lot of goals and team and things that are going to keep you up at nighttime. Like it's almost impossible to have that many clients unless you're scaling an agency. Whereas when I was working as a VA, like I'd have like 8 to 12 clients at any given point. Some of them were bigger, some of them were smaller. But as a true OBM, you've got maybe 4 retainer clients, and then you've got your dating projects here and there, and you're vetting clients in that way, and you're getting an idea of if there are any red flags before you give up 25% of your retainer hours and then have to offboard them because, wow, you got in there and you're like, this is never going to work. It happened a lot.
No, this is so, so good. And if you guys are hearing this and you have questions just about like more questions about what an OBM is, how they operate, all of that, go ahead and drop that below.
Kim's here. Hey, Kim. Kim's in the program now.
We'll be doing a Q&A at the end as well. I think this is a good one. Anytime I talk about virtual assistants, it's one of the number one questions we get. So I thought I'd go ahead and ask it here about where do you find OBM clients? So let's talk a little bit more about the ideal client. And I'll even share a little bit too about my own experience. So I think you mentioned earlier that normally it is a more established business. So that is generally somebody that is, probably making at least 100,000 or more in their business.
More, yeah.
Yeah. I think that when I brought on an OBM, we were right at like the maybe 500,000 mark. So, and I probably waited a little too long. Like I probably should have started a little sooner, but that's kind of where I was at. But I was rapidly. So we went like, from
you grew fast,
220 to 500 in a year. So it was like in that really big growth
that's
period.
crazy.
So we went, and that's when I brought in Melissa. And so Melissa at that time came in as an online business manager. And I think what was so cool about it was that it was the onboarding process that actually made me go, oh my gosh, this is going to be so great. Like it gave me such confidence that she was what I needed, because when you are a visionary, to have somebody that comes in and is like, I am going to get to know
I'll be your container.
I'll be your container. I'm like,
my container.
It's like, oh my God. It was like a load was just so lifted off of me. And then we doubled again that next year. Right. And then doubled again the next year. Like, and I think that a huge part of that catalyst was just having somebody to like
take those big pieces off your plate. So you're like, oh, okay, don't have to worry about that anymore. Let me turn my focus to the things that are going to move the needle in my business. And, it's amazing that you mentioned that, because I will say here, sometimes our OBM clients, with all the love and respect I have for them, will come in and they'll be like, oh, I have an OBM now. Now I can like go to Bali for the next 6 months. That has happened to me before. No joke. And so you have to also, as a leader, make sure that if your client is gaining back their time, part of your responsibility, and I think this is a big distinction also between VA and OBM, is that because obviously as VAs and as entrepreneurs, you're still leaders, right? Like that goes without saying, but the leadership level when you are leading your client, and that is sort of part of your role, is leading the business, leading the client, and leading yourself as an OBM. Sometimes you have to have those, conversations with the client around like, hey, like if you have an extra 5 hours of your week and you're feeling like you want to make more money and, you hired me to make more money, well, like now you need to go and you need to attend that conference or write that book or do that. And that's why goal setting is very big. And that's one of the things that we teach in the program, and making sure that you're clear about that. Because that's something that you can always use to like circle your client back and have them like focus on something that's going to move their business.
Yeah, I will say that, like, I believe, and maybe tell me if you agree with it. I think that it is good to be able um, to be enough of a personality that you can push back a little. So if you ever
Yes.
find yourself doing that, like that's
Assertive.
like I actually
Assertive.
need, I
Yes.
need someone to push
You know,
back at me.
it's so funny.
I need that so bad. And it
So
was like,
spot on.
yes.
So spot on. You need that.
I think that that was one of the things that initially drew me. And I keep this is like the let me praise Melissa show, but because it made such a difference from the client perspective. But to finally have somebody come in and say, "I'm not sure about that," or "Hey, you said this last week," like,
Yeah,
what is
exactly.
your vision?
Let
Like,
me reflect that all the time. Yes,
yes,
keeping notes, and because the visionary needs the container. So bringing them back and being like, "Hey, we set these goals," or "Hey, that's great that you want to do that. When did you imagine that being done?" And like if it's like in 3 months from now, or there's no date, great. You put it on that list. Let's revisit this later.
yeah,
But when you were saying that, Abby, it made me really think about being assertive. And I think that's some things that, everybody struggles with, is being like a more assertive person. One of the things I realized when I was making my transition from VA to OBM was how much my clients appreciated me as a sounding board. And it was so funny because a lot of the things that I was really good at as a VA were things that I barely charged for because they came so naturally to me, like project planning and strategizing and planning things. And I was like, oh, but like that comes, I enjoy doing that. So like, why should I charge for that? And so I think one of the things about making that transition is also recognizing, like, if you have been working as a VA for some time, there are definitely things that are standing out for you at this point that are like, wow, I'm good at this. So instead of being like, I'm good at this, I should give it for free. I hope you're not doing that. You're saying to yourself, wow, this is really valuable to my clients. Maybe I should investigate what this is and see if it's something that I can focus on or offer as a more core service of mine. So for
yeah.
me, that was like the strategic planning thing. I was like, I do it all the time. I love doing it. So that was a big piece.
So
So
let me ask this. We were talking about, where to find OBM clients. So we talked a little bit about like who
yeah.
that ideal person is, and obviously not asking you to teach an
No,
entire.
no, 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 no. I'm happy to share all the things.
But
I'm
yeah,
really
let me
open to
know, like,
people.
where do you actually find
Yeah,
these
where do you
higher
find
level
clients?
business
Like exactly like how you were describing where you were when you were, making the $200 to $500 mark. Like I can imagine that you weren't perusing free Facebook groups and like, having fun. So, you know, you like most of our clients are very overwhelmed, and they're usually at a point in their business where they are, I lovingly say, successful despite themselves. So you'll often find OBM clients. So I have found my best clients at conferences. So
Mm,
I will say it here. Any digital marketing conference is fair game because you know that the clients there have businesses. They are at a point in their business where they are investing in businesses. So like chamber of commerce, conferences, like anywhere where you're going to find, no offense, but like grown-up businesses that are like more established offline and online. So digital marketing conferences have always been my go-to because, I don't want to meet my clients in person. I hope that doesn't sound really bad, but I want to do everything virtually. I don't want to, find local clients. I want to go to international conferences and find people who are building digital businesses or a big leg of their business digitally because that lights me up. So I would go to encourage people to go to conferences. Maybe you have Maybe like you're an accountant and you know of accounting conferences, so you niche in those particular clients. So any kind of industry related conference, a place where they're all, you know, collaborating or coming together in one place where you can find them. It's always been important for me. Um, Another great place to find clients, again, a lot of these involve investing. You invest to go to a conference, you invest in a mastermind or courses where you know your ideal client is going to hang out. We have a directory at obmschool.com where / directory of our accredited OBMs where clients find them and we drive traffic to that. And just I think so if you are in communities on Facebook, it's not like I'm saying it's not the place to find clients, but you have to really do a lot to stand out.
Mhm.
Um, where else is there good places to find clients? So it's so funny because and we were actually just talking about this today on a call. I said to one of our new OBMs, in my experience, most of the clients that you find are literally in your first or second circle of friends and family. And what I find, and for whatever reason, and myself, I was like this as well, we sort of hide what we're doing, or we don't actively talk about it, or we don't energetically talk about what it is that we're doing. So like if you're an online business manager or you're making the transition from VA to OBM, talk about it with your friends and family. Tell people that you're looking for clients. If you already have clients, tell them that, and you love your clients, tell them that you're looking for clients. And sometimes you'll find that they're like, ooh, but I love you. I don't want to lose you. So one of my workarounds for that is like, I'm growing my team. I would love for any client referrals. And then they feel less like they're going to lose you because they're not going to lose you. It's bananas. But so existing clients, your current circles, any kind of like people that are connected to entrepreneurs are always, and then my number one is conferences. I love digital
Mhm.
marketing conferences.
And
For
we
finding
always say this. I mean, these are all great tips even for finding virtual assistant clients, but I think that it's like these are where to find some of the higher level business owners, right? And I think that like you have to remember that higher level business owners generally are going to network and be friends with other higher level business owners. And so literally so much of when you find a really great client, it is that referral system, I think too. Like when you just do great work for somebody, it is your best method of finding more people like that person, right? And so yes, talk about your business, let people know. You have no idea who is probably in your circle, you guys, already, because you could be just like two connections away, right? Like
Right.
your aunt might not be a business owner, but she might
You know
be
somebody. So the
on
girl
the
was like, oh my God,
PTA who,
my
yeah,
sister-in-law knows a YouTuber that they connected her with. And she's like, we talked for like a little while and she totally realized that she needed an OBM. She had no one on her team. So
yeah.
I was like, that's amazing. There you go.
Yep.
That's how it happens.
Yes, yes. Be talking about your business, even if you're not
Yes,
doing
it's an energy thing. Talk
yes,
about it. Bring life to it. Like give it meaning for
yeah.
yourself.
So good, so good. And something I didn't ask back in the difference between the OBM and VA subject is another thing, and you briefly mentioned it, but definitely your packages look a lot different too. Like you said, I mean, we really suggest reoccurring packages, so that
Yeah.
might not necessarily be different. Although some VAs do one-off projects, but talk a little bit about like the time commitment for a client and maybe what a typical package would look like.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
For
happy to share that. So inside of OBM school, we always make the recommendation to start with a dating project because like I mentioned, you don't want to, you date before you get married, right? So you have to make sure it's a good fit. And I always find like a strategic planning session is something that we give the whole framework for in the program. So let's say dating project aside, it's a great fit. The first thing is always a 3-month retainer. And it is an hourly based retainer. Okay. And the reason being is because you have no idea what you're getting into. So 20 hours a month for the first 3 months is our personal recipe for success. It's just enough to get in there. It's not too much where you are like overwhelmed and running for the hills. Okay. Because if you're working on a 60-hour retainer with a new client, you are like it is overwhelming. It is overwhelming. There are all the moving things. So, you take that 20 hours and you have a very, very specific plan, and we show you how to do all those plans, and you're like leaning into creating trust, building trust. It's hourly so that it doesn't go out to like right field. Oh my God, we are so out of scope kind of thing, because expectations and boundaries are, regardless of if you're a VA or an OBM, like have to be there from the onset of a relationship. And that's why it's hourly. After the first 3 months, you should have a very clear idea of what and who you are dealing with. If it is a very established business with a very clear, you know, flow, let's say they launch every quarter, you know who's on the team, it's pretty stable, you know what the growth plan is, then you can give a scope-based retainer. And at that point, it's month to month, and it's based on a certain scope of like the parts and pieces that you manage, and you have a price. And maybe at that point, it makes sense for you to stop with the hourly piece. So it's a retainer, but it's a scope-based retainer for a flat fee. Okay. And then there's things like incentive that can kick in. I'm not going to get into that. That's way more of an advanced concept after and I always say to people, like, you need to work with someone for a year before you start talking incentive, because you never know how people are with money, you know?
Yeah.
People get very weird with money. And so like, you want to make sure you know who you're dealing with before you take like a percentage off of profit for that launch that you're supporting them with, for example. Now, so now you're moving. So now we've finished the dating project. We finished the first 3-month retainer of 20 hours per month. So you've been working like 60 hours with the client now. Now you go into scope. And it's month to month. So, they can usually, I always tell people like, give me a 30 days head up to cancel, 30-day notice to cancel an agreement, but more or less it's just a month to month moving and shaking at that point.
That makes so much sense, and I love how that's laid out too. I mean, that's just
It's very simple, but it works.
it works, and I mean, I love how you call it the dating process too, of that, like, with a new client. I think that, um, it's funny because I suggest that for people when they're, like, hiring, like, when you're at the point when you're wanting to hire a subcontractor, I'm like, always get a test project,
Always.
always get a test project, like always to get some, like
Yeah.
it's a way to see their work. It's a way to see if you guys are a good match. And it gives you
Mhm.
in my opinion, I think those types of projects are always great. And I even suggest this for VAs too, is that even if you, like, rather than signing, let's sign you up for 3 months. Let's do like a 30-day trial period is, what I'll call it sometimes. And what it does, it gives you both the opportunity that if you're like, this is not working out on either end, it might be you,
Yeah.
it might be the client, like it
Yeah.
just, and
It
especially,
happens all
yeah,
the
it does.
time.
And it doesn't even mean that there's anything wrong with either of you. Sometimes
No.
it just isn't a good
If it
fit. And
doesn't work out, and yeah, and
yeah,
you wanna both walk away respectfully with your heads held high.
yes, and it gives you that time and place to have that conversation. Because 'cause I'm the kind of person that, like, especially, like, old, like, like Abby 3 or 4 years ago, I've gotten much stronger in my assertiveness and my, like, being able to have direct conversations.
Knowing what you want, yes.
Yes, I definitely was the kind of person that would just kinda kick that conversation down further and further and further and further, and then be like, "Oh, I really don't like
Oh,
working with this
why?
person, but I'm still,"
Yes,
now I'm just I'm like, "Let's talk," but,
yes,
yes, I definitely used to kick the can more, and, so it just kinda gives you that time and space to be able to have the conversation, and it's coming so that you can, it, like, almost forces you to have it, like, "Okay, we plan to chat after 30 days, let's just talk about this. Is this working? Awesome. Then let's go ahead and sign, like, a 3-month thing." It's gonna make them more comfortable signing a longer term contract, or, actually, I just don't feel like this is really working out, and it just gives you that time and space. So I absolutely
yeah,
love that, not just for OBMs, for VAs too. I think it's just
totally.
such a
So
good idea.
you made me think when you were saying that, because I think it's so important also as an OBM, because look, the way the industry is going, yes, OBMs are way popular now than they have been in the past, but clients still lack experience working with OBMs. They might have a ton of experience working with VAs, and all kinds of other online support professionals and freelancers, but maybe they've never worked with an OBM before. So the 3-month retainer, it's like a dating retainer. So there's a dating project and then this dating retainer. And the reason why it's 3 months is that sometimes after a month, like the client, it's not about buyer's remorse or getting cold feet, but it's a lot of work. I think that's the other thing that clients overlook, and it's important for us as a community of online support professionals to understand that the client is pretty naive, and sometimes they freak out and they're like, oh my god, this was bringing on an OBM was like so much more work than I thought it was, because now I need to be honest with myself about goals. I need to be honest with myself about budget. I can't pretend like I'm making $40,000 a month when I'm only making $10,000 a month. It brings to light a lot of personal things from the client. So the reason why it's a 3-month commitment, and of course, if it needs to be broken, it needs to be broken, but is because that is the amount of time that it really takes, is 3 to 6 months for an OBM to make some kind of impact in a client's business. Because first you got to get ramped up to speed, then you start moving and shaking, and it takes some time before you can measure the key performance indicators or have some sort of proof. The proof is in the pudding, as they say, of how you're actually freeing up your client's time. Because at the beginning, it is the exact opposite feeling, and it can be overwhelming for clients. So it's like when you can mitigate any kind of risk associated with that. And again, talking and being open about it. Like I always say to our agency clients that come in for OBM services, I'm like, this is not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. And this is part of scaling, right? Like you're at a place where you're ready to scale your business. Let's do this, but just know that it's not going to be a cakewalk. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's going to take some effort on both of our parts, and also transparency and also trust.
Yeah. That's so good. Let's do this. I want to give you guys time if you do have questions for Sarah to go ahead and answer them. So you can drop
Yeah.
those in the chat. We have a couple questions here, and both of the questions I see here are kind of about like this transition period between
Mhm.
being an OBM. Should you be a VA for a certain amount of time before transitioning to an OBM? Can you offer both VA and OBM services? Could you kind of speak to that,
Yeah, I
that
love this.
transition
Yeah.
period?
Okay, so I want to answer MJB's first. So can you offer both VA and OBM services? Absolutely. So it's so funny. You guys will laugh at this because it will be like, of course. So I feel like, and let me know in the comments if you can agree, that as online support professionals and freelancers, we obsess over the minutia of what is OBM and what is VA. And I will tell you something, and this might be a hard reality or not to face, but the client, they don't care if it's VA or OBM. They
Yeah.
just want to get it. They want it to be done. So I find a lot of the times when I'm helping VAs make the transition, they have to realize that you're not going to sell your services on your website. Okay. I know that might sound counterintuitive and bizarre. Definitely you want to have some semblance of services on your website. You want to be clear about the things that you offer, but it's really more about the transformation that you offer as an OBM, because as an OBM, you are essentially selling the client on the only commodity they can't get more of, and that's time. So
Yeah.
when you are highlighting your testimonials, and when you are speaking to the transformation, does it really matter if it's VA or OBM services? You're taking that off their plate. Now, I say this because in our agency, because we have the OBM school, but we also have my agency that I run with our accredited OBMs. The thing that I want to say here is that in our agency, we offer VA and OBM services. Absolutely. Because again, the client doesn't know the difference. And I am always going to value having VAs on my team and me QAing the work. And so MJB, you can absolutely offer more VA and OBM services. I think the thing to consider is your price point. And I always will say that if you are serious about being an OBM or offering OBM services, it's better to lead with the management angle and accountability, and because that's going to garnish you a higher dollar value for your hourly rate. It's going to make you more valuable in that sense. And also the thing that resonated with me so much about being an OBM, perhaps because I'm a creature of comfort, is I wanted that long-term retainer with clients, and I wanted to be able to like be in their business in the long run. Like I wasn't just coming in to be like social media graphics. I'm like, I'm your manager. I'm going to be taking care of X, Y, and Z, and I'm never going anywhere, So that's the big core difference. So I don't think it's not really about being able to separate the two. It's about finding like a happy medium. Like I said, in our agency, we have OBMs, but we also have VAs that do, I would say, like 20 to 25% of the retainer hours. Also, a big part of our manifesto in the OBM schools, leave the business better off than how you found it.
Oh,
So if you are working with clients, you want to make sure that if they need a VA in their business, you are also hiring a VA for their business to take their business to the next level. Because if I leave, I don't want to leave them with no team. And then I have other clients, like we have a new client on our roster who is a real estate agent that is building out a digital leg of her business. She has like a fully fledged business on one hand, but her coaching business is very small and in a startup phase. So I'm not going to hire her a VA per se off the start. I'm going to use my internal VA for the time being. And then eventually, we'll reassess. So I hope that didn't sort of.
Oh, totally. No, that's
I hope that was
super.
clear. But yeah, I mean, we care more than your client cares. So you
Yeah.
can, and also too, like if you have a specialty, like you're a copywriter, we have bookkeepers, we have accountants, we have lawyers who come in, doctors who come into the program. So, you want to lean into your skill set and your transferable skills. So yes.
So good. I like this question as well. What specific KPIs
Mhm.
do you use to prove your impact on the business you work for? So for anybody who's maybe
I love
newer to this language, like KPI, key performance indicators. So every business has like their core numbers and metrics they're keeping track of to make sure that the business is moving along, right? So if you were a Pinterest manager, you would say, hey, the main KPIs to show that I am, that you did that it was worth it to hire me is, did I increase, your Pinterest followers? Or did I really, for me, it was always when we were doing Pinterest back in the day, it was always like, did you get more traffic to my website?
Right.
That was like one of the main key performance indicators. And so with an OBM, there are so many, I think, areas that you can impact. Is that something that you guys like talk about in the first call? Like, I guess and call about you talk about like unique selling proposition. Like what is the really the linchpin that
Yeah.
you believe gets a person to go, yes, that's what I need? Because it's not always, I mean, we always think money, right? And I
No,
think that
it's not. Yeah, it's not
it
always. I
can
mean,
be a result. I don't think
no.
that's really the top one though. Like we did, I think that like when my brain went from crazy all over the place to having systems to actually execute on all of my ideas, we did increase revenue. So it's something that can happen, but that's definitely not what you're guaranteeing by any means or what
Yeah,
your
yeah.
necessarily your unique selling proposition is. So what would it be? And is there any kind of like metric or number that you
Yeah.
think your clients can normally see actually change after working with an OBM?
This is such a great question, Shabrika. And I think it's so important to, so it's so funny because I had a business coach once tell me that I have way too many metrics that I'm keeping track of. So it always makes me chuckle because I'm like, as you can tell already, I can't do math, but I love a number. So like Abby said, there are always the core metrics that you're gonna account for with your client. Like if you're a Pinterest manager, you're gonna be looking at the traffic. You're gonna be looking at, I don't know, what got the most engagement, and you're gonna be looking at the referral traffic. There could be core things you're looking at. My secret ingredient for this, and the thing that is so simplifies the whole thing, is goals. So when and you have some SMART goals, so look at that acronym: specific, specific, uh,
Measurable, attainable,
measurable,
realistic,
attainable. Thank you.
and time bound. I got
Realistic
it.
and time bound. It's like a mental block for me. That and math. I'm like the acronym. So when you're setting SMART goals with your client, the measurable part is key in that SMART goal. So specific, we want to get 3,000 Pinterest leads by the end of Q2. Um, um, Measurable, like you have like that specific number of how many leads you want to get. Is it attainable? Yes, it's attainable because we drive traffic, we're creating posts, we know that we're already getting traffic. Is it realistic? Yes. And is it time bound? Yes, because we're going to do it by the end of Q2. So now if we're looking at the increasing of traffic, okay, well, what's the thing to measure this by? The traffic, right? Like how much referral traffic. And so when it comes to KPIs, and I think, a better example would be related to launch management, because I feel like when you're managing funnels or when you're managing a launch for a client, things can quickly derail that you're not going to anticipate unless you are tracking a KPI, a key performance indicator. So my way of describing this that I'm really proud of is that it's like the pulse of the business. So if I'm putting my finger on the pulse of our launch, for example, what do I need to track? What's going to tell me if we're going to be alive or dead by the end of this launch? So for example, when it comes to launch management, we have some specific goals related to, let's say you're handling a launch and it has to do with a coach, and the coach needs to fill 20 spots in their program. And I know, because I've been working in this business for a while, that the coach, when they get on a sales call, they close 50% of those sales calls. So I'm going to be really a smart OBM, and I'm going to look at, as a KPI, how many sales calls my client is booking. I know if I need to get 20 people into the program and my client closes at 50%, I need to get 40 sales calls in. So the whole launch, I can be looking at just the sales call signups as a key performance indicator. Obviously, I'm looking at different metrics. I'm doing a postmortem, blah, 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 looking at sales page traffic. But as a KPI, the key performance indicator that's going to indicate the performance of my launch is going to be related to the amount of sales calls booked. And so there's always these like nuances with KPIs. It's never like black and white. It's never cut and dry. It always has to do with the goals. It always has to do with your client's special thing that they have that only they can do. And then you have to choose one or two KPIs that you're going to look at, usually daily or weekly, that are going to tell you if things are working, yay or nay. And I will say one more example, because I get really excited about KPIs. I didn't always, but I do nowadays. The other thing that you have to remember when it comes to key performance indicators is, like, if you have a client that has this evergreen funnel, which I know is very popular in the online space, and they've got this funnel that they're running. Well, if you're not able to track KPIs on that funnel, it might be broken, and it might be some time before you realize it's broken. And as an OBM, there's nothing more disheartening for us as human beings to like drop the ball on something when, if you just check that one metric, you would have known, oh wait, the sales page traffic stopped. Oh, the link is broken, because things break, right? Like, I think that's the thing that I've come to realize about the online space is tech things break down, and it's usually out of our control. And unless you have KPIs to mitigate that risk,
You
you
usually
might
don't
be
know
out.
until you've lost out on sales. And so if you
Right,
can
exactly.
predict it ahead of time.
Now you're like a month in and you're like looking at the general metrics and you're like, oh wow, we didn't get any sales this month. And then you look back and you're like, oh, should have seen
Oh,
that
yep,
coming. Should have
yep,
seen that coming. And then you feel
yep.
really bad.
Yeah, and it's so crazy, because when you're talking about, like, again, what's the benefit, what's the unique selling proposition? I love what you said earlier, whereas like your ideal client probably got to this point in business, like had success in business despite
Right.
themselves.
Despite themselves.
So
Yes.
that resonated so much with me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, like that. And that is so much so where it's like, most visionaries are just coming in hard with like
Yes.
here's the offer, here's the sale, here's the thing, and like systems, processes, metrics, strategy, all of those things are like, we'll get to those.
Yeah, exactly. Or like they're like looking at all the bright shiny objects around them and they're like, wait a second, wait, but I want this, but what about that? And and that's why like leadership is so core of a quality of a soft skill. So it's so funny because we talked a lot about the hard skills of being an OBM, but truly it's the soft skills that are really come into play here. Like how much emotional intelligence, how much patience, how much you know like, how much empathy do you have for this client who, again, is successful despite themselves? You're like, how are you making $40,000 a month? You have no team members. You don't know if you're coming and going. You have no project management tools. So when you start to systematize and streamline things, it takes that pressure off of them of like chaos. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's being taken care of. Now I can go and I can like create more and do more of the things that have made me successful despite myself.
Yeah, and I think that I don't know if that's always in like a KPI, but your ideal client will feel that pain point and they'll feel when it's relieved. Like you
Yes.
know when it's like, oh, I was thinking about, and it's like, oh nope, we already discussed this, we took care of this. Oh yep, this isn't a goal. Hey, look, we set goals and then we actually stuck to them and revisited
Yeah,
them and didn't
exactly.
forget about
When they
them.
see the opportunity cost, right? Of like, oh, and
Yes.
also, because like even like let's take Melissa because let's praise her a little bit more because I know we both love her. But like, when she came on as an OBM, she put the systems in place, she freed you up. And as she continues to evolve in your business, she knows the strategy, she can weigh in about the decisions. Like it's taking that investment
Mm-hmm.
seriously to the next level. So it's that, you know, it's just amazing. So when you've been working, and again, like, I've in hindsight, I've had some clients that I literally worked with for years and years and years and years. And you can really see with those clients after a few years how much it gives back to their business. Also, my OBM on my team, like she's been with me for I think 4 or 5 years now. She's like has like an extension of my brain. She knows how I'm gonna think, she knows how I'm gonna react to things so she can, do those instead of me. And it's great. It's really
Yeah.
great.
Yep. I literally took 6 weeks off my business last year, and
Amazing.
she ran the whole thing. That was
And
it
you
was
probably could have taken more time,
probably.
Abby.
But I was ready to get back.
Yeah.
Okay, this has been a really, really great conversation, Sarah. Thank you so much. I think
Yeah,
that
thank you for having me here.
this is just invaluable, and it's not for everybody, but for the person who it is right for, it can be such an absolute game changer. So if you are interested in OBM school, again, Sarah's accreditation process is open. You can apply. It is free to apply, and when you apply you get a call with Sarah. So even just figuring out if this is a good fit for you, I definitely recommend it. If what we've been saying throughout this time has been resonating with you, just fill out the application so that way you can see if this is a right next step for you. I'm super, super excited. Anything else that you want to say about the accreditation or application process, Sarah, before we jump off?
I just think for those of you who are considering this, and I know because I know my people, even if it's just an inclining, take 2 seconds to fill out that application. I promise I am not going to force anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. What I will do is I will help you work on a plan to make a transition. I can definitely help you to evaluate if your current clients are a good fit for an OBM. So I really want to come at it from the perspective of like giving back and this safe space, just like Abby's created. I don't want to. So if this does resonate with you, even just a little bit, apply. You have an opportunity to hop on a call with me. You're going to get a wealth of information about being an OBM and what the program looks like. And I just think that, we are so lucky to be living in these times where we can work online and work in our pajamas. And I've been doing this for more than a decade. I've had 3 kids throughout this process, and my business has really ebbed and flowed from, solo OBM, or from VA to solo OBM to team-based OBM to agency to OBM school to agency with accredited OBMs. And I continue to evolve. So kudos to you guys for taking entrepreneurship by the horns. I think each and every one of us in this community, and I love Abby's community. I've been to your events. I'm a part of this community. I just think that it's so important for us to recognize how far we've come and how amazing it is that we have these opportunities. And thank you to each and every one of you for taking time out of your day to invest in your business development and to consider what the options are for you and to do better and to be a better entrepreneur. So kudos to all of you guys. And, Abby, I just love being here. I love being in your community. It's always an honor to hold space with you guys. And, if this helps one person, recognize that OBM is for them, then I've done my work today. So thank you for letting me hop in here.
I love this. I know no matter what, this has been a very value packed training. So thank you so much
Thank
again.
you so much, Abby. Take
Yes.
care, everybody.